are not able to join us.
Thank you for remembering. I always have to put a Post-it on my screen to remember to click record when I'm doing these sorts of things on my end.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us for this workshop on specifications, bundles, and tokens. My name is Krista Hermes. I'm here with my other colleagues from the Teaching and Learning Center, and we are here basically just to facilitate a workshop that will be led by Mr. Sean Kennedy, one of our very own faculty at South Texas College in the history department. And earlier in the spring semester, he dropped by the Teaching and Learning Center and just planted a seed about this idea that he was implementing and had very promising results. So we were really excited to hear about it. And we are grateful to you, Sean, that you're willing to take some of your time and share your experiences and maybe answer some questions for those that are curious. As you can tell, we are recording this session because we realize some people may be interested in learning more, but for whatever reason weren't able to join us. So if you have a colleague, just let them know, and we'll be glad to send them the link later. But without further ado, I'll turn it over to Sean, and then at the end I'll share some information for some follow-up sessions for those who are interested in pursuing this further.
Excellent. Thank you, Krista. And thanks to everybody at the Teaching and Learning Center, not OPOD. So I'm getting good at saying that the new title for your division. But yeah, thank you everybody for joining. There's some names out there I've never seen before because our college keeps getting bigger and bigger. So for those that don't know me, I'm Sean Kennedy. I think I've been teaching here at South Texas College going on 18 years. I'm in the history department. I mainly teach U.S. history survey courses. And so, yeah, I'm delighted to share something I came across. Krista had mentioned this was an idea I had. This is something I stumbled on prior to the previous semester, the spring semester, and was immediately taken by it. I saw the efficacy for it and spent a good deal of my winter break overhauling my course to implement it and to learn that I made a bunch of fundamental mistakes and had to revise as soon as the semester started once I started explaining it to the students. So this presentation is just as much for me as it is for anybody who might be interested in specification and bundling courses. Because as we all know, you get to learn when you teach things. And so this gave me the opportunity to really dive in and to make sure I have some idea about what I'm doing with this novel approach to teaching courses. And so it's definitely an alternative to traditional grading, specification and bundling. And as we go forward, we'll take a look at that. So let me make sure I know how to use a PowerPoint. There we go. But before we get into what this is, what do you all think about grades? Do you love it, or do you have another opinion about it? And you can get me in the chat or open up your mics. But just grading overall. Meh. Yeah, Renee says meh. Yeah. Grades aren't my favorite. Grading is a drag. Yeah. Yeah, especially when it comes time to grading, right? Grading is the worst.
Sean, Pooja has her hand raised. I think she might want to share.
Okay, just go ahead and open up your mic, Pooja.
Yes, so grading is becoming increasingly difficult to do because of the prevalence of AI and and all of those things. It's becoming very difficult to police cheating, and just the incentives are that students might want to cheat if it's competitive, right? So it's increasingly becoming more and more difficult.
Yeah, definitely AI has brought scrutiny to grading and the frustrations to grading. And although specifications and bundling isn't a panacea against AI, I do think within the nuance of this schema, there is some opportunities to at least mitigate um, the challenges that come with this revolution of AI that has basically invaded us all here. So yeah, grading is hard. Yeah, definitely. So some of the things that I was thinking, especially when I started implementing this, and again, I've been teaching for about 2 decades, and it's just a perennial conversation I'm having with myself as well as other colleagues. But from the perception of students, from talking with them and reading evaluations, grades can be seen as unattainable targets. It seems to promote zero-sum thinking, which is really a hindrance to students that might not be ready for college. For a student that's ready for college, you could throw whatever you have at them and they'll eat it up and give it back to you. But yeah, for a student, especially for the students that I see, and probably a lot of you, first year college students, it seems zero sum. And that's a problem, because if, especially I'll just jump down to this third bullet point, courses may be tailored specifically for A students. And so if you are requiring your students to write essays and they don't have a background in writing essays, or at least haven't been scrutinized at a college level for essays, I could see how a student will just throw their hands up and won't either go to AI or just not do it, or worse, drop the course, right? And then I think also from the perception of students, they seem to be granted rather than earned, right? And so rather than students saying, how do I earn an A? You get it framed as, how do I get an A, or how do I make an A? Those kinds of things. So and these are kind of the things that I've heard students talk about grades for my evaluations or from student emails. I just took a quiz and got an 88%. Can I do any extra credit to get my grade up? Right. And this is particularly disheartening because, this is for a quiz, right? And it's now I realize I have a student that is worrying about 2 percentage points. And what are they not concerned about? They're not concerned about learning the content, right? And to a certain extent, that should be understandable, right? These are students just, for a lot of our courses, are just checking boxes, and so why would they be interested in learning history? But I for some reason, I'm under the delusion that I can inspire students to be at least interested in history. And when I see something like that, although it's understandable, they don't want to waste their time and they want to make their time and effort worth something, this to me tells me they're interested in those 2 points of percentage right there, rather than learning the content. This question I get from dual credit students quite a bit because they're typically in cohorts. My friend got an A on her paper and I responded with the same information and references and I got a B, right? And so that's particularly frustrating and understandable, particularly traditional grading, especially if you are grading quite a few papers. No matter how detailed your rubric, there is an element where it is arbitrary, right? Depending on the time of day you're grading, what you got going on in the day. And that's why typically I try to grade things twice before I post them, to make sure that it is aligned with the rubric as specifically as possible. And then this one right here, particularly heartbreaking. I worked really hard this semester and showed up to every class, and it looks like I'm going to fail. I'm confused how to pass this course. And particularly that what's heartbreaking is towards the end of the semester when you have students that are confused about how to pass the course. And that's frustrating on our end because I don't know about you, but it seems like the first 5 minutes of class, I'm reminding them how you pass the course. You do these assignments, you prepare this way, you read this, and you will pass the course. And then when you get this towards the end of the semester, it's heartbreaking because I've had students that do show up every day and they're turning things in, but they're just not sure about the expectations. And whether they're going to fail or not might be another question, but the fact that they feel like they're going to fail really is disheartening. And I can see how that can be very discouraging to a student, and why bother continuing with this enterprise of getting a college education if I just feel miserable at the end of each semester. So I would like to introduce how or just explain how I got introduced to specs, or bundling as sometimes it's referred to. And it's kind of funny. I came across it kind of serendipitously. Never heard of it before this semester. And well, I read a book. It was a theology book, and I read this book, and it was a very engaging book. And it's a recent publication, and the professor is currently teaching out in Washington. So I was looking up her contact information to get a hold of her. And what do you guys think? What do you guys think is the first thing that always comes up if anybody's looking up our contact information? What website? Not our contact information. Yep, there we go. Rate My Professor. So Rate My Professor came up, and the professor's name is Carrie Frost. And so the Rate My Professor came up, and I had a thought of, oh, that's none of your business. Don't take a look at it. And then I had another thought of, well, I'm curious. What type of teacher is this? So I took a look at it, and overwhelmingly great reviews. She got a 5. You know, it was outstanding course. But this is what caught my eye immediately reading her comments. Almost all of the comments indicated how much they either liked bundling or they love bundling, right? So here's just a few of the comments from her Rate My Professor. Uses the bundling system so you can choose how much work you want to do, what grade you want to get, and plan accordingly, right? So immediately, that last comment I shared with you as a student, let me back up a little bit. One thing I want to impart is I'm not an expert on this. Last semester was the first time I implemented it. And I can tell you, just in that semester, I had no student coming to me confused if they were going to pass the course or not. They all knew towards the end of the semester exactly what their grade was because they chose steps to earn that grade. And I'll talk about how that's possible as we go through this. A very kind professor who definitely knows her stuff. Used a bundling grading structure that made it easy to know how you were doing and decide what grade you want to work towards. Professor Frost structures her classes wonderfully. She uses a bundles grading system that lets you complete assignments at the pace and intensity you prefer. And this one kind of gets right to the meat of it. You are graded on bundles, so you can so you get to choose your grade. If you want a C, you do all the C assignments. If you want a B, you do all the B assignments. And if you want an A, you do all the A assignments. So, you know, we can end the presentation right here without getting into too much detail, but basically that is kind of the fundamental of bundling right there. Right. So what is specification grading and bundling? There are two aspects. I'm using two terms, specification and grading. Specification is dealing with how you assess assignments, and bundling is how you sort of organize the curriculum in different buckets for letter grades at the end of the semester. All right. So in general, specification grading involves binary grading, that is based on an upfront, clearly communicated pass or fail or complete or incomplete expectations. So that's one thing to keep in mind. It eliminates, until you get to the end of the semester, you eliminate all points, percentages, or grades, right? That's kind of the idea about it, which is one of the things I saw the virtue in it during winter break before the spring semester, because that is such a frustrating conversation because these are abstractions, right? And it's abstracting the knowledge or the skill set behind what the grade is supposed to represent, right? And so you eliminate that conversation altogether. And one of the things that I was able to witness is my students did not seem too anxious throughout the semester as far as grades were concerned, right? There was stress, natural stress, as far as they have to complete assignments and they were concerned about their performance, but the specifications were pretty clear if they were going to earn a complete or incomplete. Due to its all or nothing nature, students are allowed within limits revision opportunities. And so that is encouraged. One of the things about this system is it's not a one size fits all for everybody, right? There's different ways of doing it. So I'll share a book with you guys in just a little bit, but within that book, there's all sorts of different examples from different academic disciplines. And different types of instructors that, and some of which do not allow revisions, but it seems to lend itself to allow revisions in your curriculum. Meeting expectations is aimed at a B level, 80% work or better, with the ultimate goal of evaluating students' performance. So this is where high expectations come into play. So even though a C student, a student who chooses to earn a C, which is, which I was pretty myself when I was first couple of years in college, which I would have really appreciated that, like, especially for math courses for me and science courses, that's not my forte. So if I was given a clear path of how to earn a C in the course, that would have been very helpful. So I didn't get into that idea of zero-sum thinking of I'm not good, you know, with this kind of negative talk based on past experiences. I'm not good at math, and I don't even know how to get a C in this course because it seems like I have to strive for an A in all my efforts in this course. Bundles or modules are tied to the course's learning outcomes, meaning student efforts. Demonstrate mastery of more skills in content or both. And so there's a clear connection between what it is you want them to learn to the assignment. At least a more clear than traditionally, I think, than the way we've been doing it. Specifications can be applied to individual assignments or bundles. So again, there's different avenues, different ways people can approach this, and I'll explain this in just a little bit, but you can just use specifications for every assignment and just keep traditional grading in place, or you can bring in bundles, which are just modules, right? Units with assignments in it. And again, clear standards are set for successful completion, which is you either completed it or you didn't complete it, right? There's not a sense of us at the back end when we're grading of, well, they got most of it and I'm feeling nice. And so, yeah, I'll give them the A, right? You give them a clear list of what they need to do. And if they do it, then it's complete. And if there are things in the list that you give them that they don't do, then it's incomplete. Oops, there we go. Okay. So here is an approach to this schema. And again, this is just an approach. This is my approach of basically what I came up with for this summer. This is basically referring to my summer 2 course coming up in July, after modifying some of the mistakes I made during the spring semester, some things I just didn't anticipate. But so here's specifications. Let's see, open. Oh, do I have to bounce out of this? There we go. All right. Does everyone see this new document?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay. So this is a traditional, right? Here's a rubric, and I'm bringing this up at first because if you, this is something I've done. It's okay. Here's a paper you need to write. Here's the rubric. Read this rubric, and here's the expectations, right? And I could see from a student looking at this with all these letters and these boxes and these percentages and trying to figure out what do I actually need to do? I mean, if you really read it carefully, you can figure it out. But again, students, especially our students, first, maybe second year in college, a lot of this is new to them. So instead of having these very detailed rubrics that we hand to our students, you have specifications, right? So here is just basically a writing assignment that I'm handing to my students, right? Choose one prompt. So here's a number of prompts that they can choose to write on. They have to write on this prompt as well. And then I give them some instructions, turn this document, meaning this document, in with your response, staple it and hand it to me. If you are not satisfied with your grade, you can pay 50 EDCMs, which are tokens, which I'll talk about in a little bit, to revise, to be submitted within 2 days. And this is basically what are the expectations. Responded to the prompt sufficiently, wrote an entire page, 500 to 750 words, specific references to subject material, meaning that they were specific. They didn't just say Native Americans. They specified perhaps we're referring to the Cherokee. They didn't just say the Europeans. They were talking about the Spanish, Virginians rather than colonists, or specific historical names, dates, and events, right? In other words, were you bringing in specifics from the content that was assigned? And then this is handwritten. This is a handwritten response, which is a way of mitigating AI problems. So I have them, they need to include 3 direct references from secondary sources, 2 direct references from primary. And then this is something I borrowed from Carrie Frost, the person I learned about bundling, 2 direct references from class discussions, which also helps mitigate AI, right? They need to refer to what we discussed in class, whether it was lecture or whether it was a discussion in class. And obviously they can't get that by scouring the internet through AI. And so I hand this back to them, and these all need to be checked. And if it's checked, they get a complete. And if it's not, then they get an incomplete. And here's just another example. This is a summary reflection and a summary that they can do by just basically kind of having a general idea of a general response of what they've read since our last class period. And again, a nice little list for them to go over to make sure that they've included everything that is required for this assignment. It makes it easier for them, and it makes it very easy for me to grade it, right? And to be as sincere and honest in my grading as possible. So incredibly transparent for the student, incredibly transparent for, or at least manageable for the instructor.
Sean, we do have a question in the chat. Roz is asking, is there a way to shift from wanting a C grade to a B grade?
You can maintain grades if you like in this approach, but the emphasis is to get away from awarding grades until the end of the semester. And so the idea is, well, it's not a matter if it's a C or a B, is it complete or is it incomplete, right? And so if they did this, but they didn't, if a student submitted this particular assignment, but they didn't give any references to the discussion, then this would be unchecked, and I would hand it back to them, and then they would have a couple of days to revise it and hand it in to get it complete. All right, did that answer your question, Rosemond?
No, I think what I'm specifically asking is, have you had students that make the choice to do the C assignments and then say, well, I'm really want to B now. I don't want that C, but I've been doing C assignments.
Yeah.
Is there a way to flip? Mhm.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Actually, that's one of the virtues of the system. So, um, a student comes in at the beginning of the semester, and I think that I could see it in their faces. They're very excited because, yeah, dude, I'm just here to check a box, man. I just need to pass this course. And so they go through the bundles, and they're just deciding to do the C's, but um, then they realize, well, I might as well just do the other assignments to get the B. And then so they do the other assignments to get the B, right? And then some of the students um, indicate, think, well, I might as well do the assignment to get the A, right? And so it gives them choice. So it's very empowering to students. And they know right off the bat, well, this is my grade. And even though we might be very meticulous in our grade books, if we're using traditional grading, that you got an 84% or you got 350 points for this unit, and that means something that's articulated in the syllabus. I think to a lot of students, when they see these percentages or points, they don't know where they're at throughout the entire semester. And so I think that allows for them a lot of magic thinking, and just kind of throwing stuff at the wall and hoping it sticks. This approach is very detailed. I'll show you an example of how I bundled my curriculum that I think will make it a little bit more apparent. So let's go back to that. Okay, so here's bundles. Oops. Oops. Now I did it. Okay, where am I? Okay.
Okay, and we have another question as a follow-up to Roz's
Sure.
question.
Yeah.
Wendy's asking, do you have a timeline regulator during your term for targeted grade goal switch-ups? So I'm
Yeah.
guessing, Wendy, that would be like at some point in the semester, you're going to decide I'm targeting for a B instead of a C. Okay, that was a thumbs up. Um, allow for motivated gains, but also regulate personal responsibility so there's not last minute changes.
Yeah, this is the way I approach it. So part of bundling, which is encouraged, is to allow due dates to be suggested. So as you see here, I've got these are the bundle due dates. And this is for summer 2. So bundle 1 is due July 13th with an asterisk. Remember, all due dates are flexible and you could submit assignments after the due date. Now, the predicament you can find yourself in is a student can go, cool, I'll just hang out and try to get everything done at the end of the semester. So to mitigate that, I implement a check-in date, July 30th. If you don't have bundles 1 through 3, have not earned a complete for a C, that is, you haven't done enough assignments for bundles 1 through 3 to earn a C, then you will be blocked from the course, which you can do from the roster tool within Blackboard. You can block students, and from there, they can get a hold of you and you can have a conversation with them to see if they want to stay enrolled in the course or not. But yeah, did that answer your question? Okay, all right. Okay, so these are the bundles, and let me just open up bundle 1 real quick to show you how it's done. So at least how I do it. So to earn a C, a student will open up Blackboard and they will see folders, these 2 folders. They'll see all of the folders, but so I'm a student, I just want to earn a C, so I just need to get a complete on B1.1 Native Americans pre-European conquest and B1.2 incidents of the life of a slave girl, part 1, right? And so they complete that. These are assignments they do in Blackboard through the application H5P, right? And so if they want to earn a B, they've got to complete everything for a C plus the following: B1.3, Africans and American Journey Through Slavery, Part 1. And to earn an A, complete everything for a C and a B plus the following: Bundle 1 quiz. And so this is where, to get back to that previous question, this is where a student who is like, yeah, I just want to get a C in this course, then they start thinking to themselves, well, geez, I've got time, I might as well do what it takes to earn a B for this particular bundle, right? And so on and so forth, perhaps for an A.
So just to
Okay.
clarify, it sounds like these are kind of like, so to speak, if I could use the term stackable. So in other words, if back to Roz's question, so let's say a student is just, as you said earlier, I don't like history, no offense. I actually my undergraduate was in history, so I do love history. But let's just suppose we have
You're
one of
one of the
those
few.
students. And so they say, I'm just going for a C, but then midway through, they say, actually, I can do a B. To earn a B, they would have to complete all the C assignments plus the B assignments. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And then if they want to earn an A, they would have to do all the C assignments, the B assignments, and finish with the A assignments.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how I've organized it. And again, there's different approaches to this, which we can discuss if in future discussions and meetings that we might have. Oops, let me bring that. Okay, sorry about that. Let me bring that back up. Here we go. This is what I was looking for. So they do all of these bundles, and all of these bundles are organized in that same manner, right? A list of assignments for a C, a list of assignments for a B, a list of assignments for an A. Can they do all of, I see this question here. Can they do all of the assignments for any of the bundles and still fail? How would you address a student asking, but I did? So in the grade book, you set up the grade book, and you can do this in Blackboard. You can design your evaluations and edit out A, B, C, D to complete, incomplete, and eliminate the other table. So if a student tried to complete, let me bring this up again if I can. Oh shoot, it's not enough room there. So if a student attempted this assignment and didn't complete it to the standard, they would see in the grade book an incomplete. And so they would know if they looked at their grade book that they got an incomplete. And depending on, I've seen some instructors say that they only give one attempt, but then they allow through the token system, which I'll explain later, to purchase more attempts, or you can just bake in to give them at least 2 attempts or whatever it is that you want to do. So there shouldn't be any confusion on the student's end if they completed or didn't complete an assignment once they've submitted it through Blackboard. Okay, excellent. So this is where we do talk about grades at the end of the semester. And this is something I got from Carrie Frost, and I understood why she did it as soon as I started organizing and building this within Blackboard, because you do need to create total calculations for each bundle for each grade, A, B, and C. So you have a total calculation for the C grade for bundle 1, the B grade for bundle 1, and for A, right? And so you have all of these total calculations. And so just for practical reasons, eliminating the D is very helpful. And really, what is a D? It's a student that's not really trying, and it's kind of not honest, at least on my end, to allow students to get a D. Theoretically, they're passing the course, but if they're going to try to transfer, they're not going to be able to apply that course to the university. So I've eliminated, based on her advice, getting rid of the D grade completely. And so how do they earn an A? Well, all 4 bundles for an A have been completed. So all 4 bundles all of these, bundle 1, bundle 2, bundle 3, and bundle 4, were marked complete for an A. So they got an A for that component of the course. And then I have these handwritten assignments that they do in class. And for this, I require them, which I mark the standard up to a 95%. They have to get an outstanding complete. For a B, they have to get a complete. And for a C, they get a near complete. So I give the C students the opportunity to practice writing, but I keep the standards a little bit lower for them. So they're not discouraged. and yet they're getting some practice in writing, and that they can build upon that practice for their other courses, or again, they can revise and resubmit it within 2 days to try to get it up to a B or an A. And then the final paper is marked either complete or incomplete. They have to earn a complete to earn an A, plus they have to get these two components. For a B, they have to get a complete, plus they have to get these two components. And for a C student, I don't require them to write a final paper. And again, this is just the way I do it. This is not a prescribed recipe of how anybody else needs to do it. And then attendance, right? Miss no more than one class, 2 classes, 3 classes, right? And they all correspond to the letter grade right there. And then the last component that I put into this are tokens. And let me just show you real quick. I hope I don't make anybody too dizzy, but this is the way I approach tokens. And basically what tokens are is an extra incentive program to incentivize them to come to class, to turn things in perhaps early. And there's some other things that I can show you that I do, but here are my tokens. And I'll tell you a little story about this in a second. So see all that money right there? Those are my tokens. So I've got denominations of hundreds, 50s, 20s, 10s, and 1s. And then I bring them into my class in this little pink cash box here. And this is probably the thing that students appreciate the most out of the system. Now, not all instructors who incorporate specifications and bundling use tokens. Carrie Frost doesn't use tokens, but when I was explaining to her, we talked a few times over the spring semester. She sounded actually interested in doing this. She just hadn't given it too much thought when she had implemented the system. But what is basically tokens? How does it work? Let me open up this. So, and I've seen instructors basically only have one avenue for tokens, basically turning things in on time, perhaps, and they get tokens. But I thought this would be a good way of leveraging a lot of the things that that many of us might find frustrating with students. So, for instance, students that are habitually coming late to class, which is very frustrating because it's not so much like I'm trying to instill a virtue of you got to be on time. This is the way the real world works. That's usually the first 5 minutes is when I've made all sorts of announcements, right? This is going to be due. Here's an extra credit opportunity. Here's what you need to keep in mind for the final paper, whatever, right? And then a student comes in 5 minutes late, and then they're asking me questions a couple weeks later for something that, you guys know the story, right? So to leverage tokens, every time for summer, I've increased it. Typically, I give $2 during the semester. Are they personalized? So they, yeah, good question. So I've got a stamp that I've stamped my currency with, and so that stamp's got to be on there when they redeem these tokens. So I guess they could figure out how to buy that stamp and cheat the system. So that hasn't happened, but if it ever happens, I guess I can find a very personalized stamp. But yeah, I do stamp the money.
And there's another question from Pooja. Did you try bundled grading only in a face-to-face setting?
I did both. And although I have success in my internet course, it's not as successful as the face-to-face classes, probably for very obvious reasons. The big lift on this, the challenge for this is teaching students this very novel approach. So the first, one, I create a video that they have to watch during the first week explaining all of this. And then I field as many questions and remind them the first couple of weeks. So obviously that's very challenging to do in an internet course, and I provide them with videos, I provide them with announcements, but in an internet course, you can't look out to your students and see if they're confused or if they get it or not. And so there's just a lot more in the internet courses where I'm reminding them and having to respond to personal messages, direct messages explaining this again to internet students. But that's the only problem with it. Overall, it's still very successful in internet courses. So yeah, they walk into class, they get $20. If they stay for the entire class, they get another $20, right? And then I'm a big stickler for at least encouraging students to submit things early to mitigate stress for them so they don't get so anxious that they drop out. And so if they submit a bundle, whether they earned a C, a B, or an A, right, they can get another $25 if they earned a C and submitted it a day early, everything a day early for a C, 50 for a B, and 75 for an A. And then any in-class work we do, depending on what it is that we're doing, anywhere from $1 to $50. And this is a good way of doing group work. And so you can hand them different denominations and they can split it up. I have an opportunity for them to do in-class presentations, right? I don't require presentations. And so this was pretty interesting. I tried this for the first semester, making presentations optional. And I got quite a few students taking me up on this to earn these EDCMs. And what these EDCMs stand for is effort, dedication, and character money. And then daily summaries. So this is just an assignment that I shared actually earlier, a way for them to stay up on the reading, and they can earn up to $50 EDCMs if they turn that in as prescribed. And then I like to take walks. And so I have students walk with me, and they can earn up to 20 EDCMs per mile. And then some service work. I do some work with the food bank. And so I haven't done this yet, but I'm going to see if I can get students to help me out at the food bank, and they can earn 75 in some service work. And so,
I
okay,
have a
what
question, Sean.
Yeah.
Regarding these tokens, have you noticed a difference in, response or reaction based on the age of the student?
Oh, good question. Yeah, my dual credit students, I taught at PSJ North this last spring, and they loved it. All the students love it, but man, they were really excited about it, right? It was like I would walk into the class and they would be talking about how much money they had and how much money they needed to be exempt from whatever. And so they were really into it. But overall, all of the students of all of this is the thing that they grokked the most and really helped incentivize to succeed in the course. And so so I have a pretty strict attendance policy, right? That can be pretty discouraging to a student if they've done everything for the A, right? They did all the bundles, they got it complete. They did the summaries, they got outstanding complete. They did the final paper and they got it complete, but they missed 3 classes and now their grade goes down to a B, right? So they could pay me $50 and they can get their absence excused, right? And I limit it to 5 per semester, which I might need to modify for the summer. And then I allow them, if they want to be exempt from these bundle summaries, these are just kind of cumulative assignments for each bundle. They can pay me $250 to $500 and be exempt from that. And then the big cash prize for $750, they could be exempt from the final paper, right? And so that's basically how bundling, using tokens within this bundling system works for me, right? And again, there's all sorts of ways that one can explore of how to leverage necessary behavior in order to succeed in a course. Coming in on time, perhaps turning things early, staying the entire class, and perhaps doing extra credit. And for extra credit, it works very well too, because one, extra credit is very difficult to figure out how to calculate within the gradebook. It's the Blackboard gradebook, excuse me. And two, you got to keep track of it, right? So it's one more thing you have to implement in it. So for extra credit, if there's a presentation here, I come up with some sort of denomination for it, like 25. And if they go and write a reaction paper to it, they get money for that as well. And the other thing I do for bundling is if I see students using cell phones, and this is really nice too, because it's not me. It's straightforward. It's not me saying that don't use cell phones in my class, right? It's they get it and they want to keep their money. So last spring semester, I had 0 problems with cell phones in my course. That is, so basically, just to summarize, what I have found just doing this one semester, I was able to uphold high academic standards, which has been a challenge since I've been teaching, especially here at South Texas College, where students are typically first-generation college students. They have all sorts of very real adult responsibilities. They work. Many of them have families, children, or they're taking care of family members. And so to have these high standards is a challenge, college level standards. And so it's always been a game semester to semester of where do I make it accessible for students and empower them so when they leave me and go to their next semester with a different instructor in a different course, they're developing skill sets that can help them throughout their college career and perhaps their professional career. And so now I'm able to go, okay, if you just need a C or perhaps a B in this course, here's the standards, here are the assignments, the specifications, and it's very clear to a student and it's accessible. But I can really isolate the specifications and the type of assignments for those A students. So I feel pretty confident from the spring semester, those students that earned an A in the course really did earn an A in the course. And I think from the student's perspective, they walked away and with the idea of, I wasn't given an A, I earned that A. So that's probably one of the best things I found, the most productive thing I found with this approach to evaluating students. Reflect on student learning outcomes, right? It's a little bit more direct, motivating students to learn for all the things that I've been talking about. The emphasis is on learning. My discussions in class were vibrant, right? I wasn't discussing, well, you need to get 2 more points or you're at this percentage. And so I didn't have any of those conversations. And so the conversations I had was dealing with the content and the concepts and the controversy of history. And so that obviously gets students to excel. It reduces student stress because it's incredibly transparent. They know what it takes to earn a C. They know what it takes to earn a B. They know what it takes to earn an A. And it's on them, right? They realize, oh, I know exactly how to earn these grades. This is the grade I want. That's the grade I'm going to get. So it doesn't eliminate stress. Stress is actually obviously a good thing. What I tell my students, if you're stressed out, that's a way of your body telling you that you care about your time and your effort. But too much stress can lead to anxiety, which is crippling. We don't want that. Minimizes conflict between faculty and students. So the tension that at least I've experienced with students that are confused about the standards, the expectations, what it takes to earn an A, a B, or even to pass the course, that was almost completely diffused in my spring semester. And obviously, yeah, it makes students feel responsible for their grades because they know exactly what it takes to earn a grade. It's pretty transparent. It's laid out in a very accessible way. Yeah, I do implement bundling for my CBE courses as well. Was this I did this for Pooja. I did this for all of my courses. So dual enrollment as well as our face-to-face classes here on campus and internet courses. Yeah, and this is a good one right here. Saves faculty time. I found, especially when it comes to grading papers, when you have a specification list rather than a rubric, I'm not spending too much time trying to go, okay, did they really get everything they needed to get an A? You know, that kind of a conversation we had. Do I give them a B? And then students coming in to talk about the grade that they earned because they feel that they should have earned an A or a B and they got a C or a D, right? And so it saves a lot of time in that regards. And yeah, it gives students feedback that they will use. So when you give them a specification list, they know right away if it wasn't checked based on my evaluation, then they know exactly what they need to do for a revision. And, you know, all this is to say, it makes expectations clear. So Renee is asking, Sean, do you have any primary or secondary sources based on research component in your classes? I'm trying to get my head around this bundling component to research the assignment. If you're asking for resources, I think I skipped over this. Let me go back to this slide right here. This is the Bible for specification grading by Lyndon Nilsson. It's a great little book. It's very short. And what's great about this is, you know, I gave you my approach. The way I do it probably wouldn't work for somebody teaching math or science, right? And so there are examples of faculty in the STEM disciplines where it looks very different than the way I approached it. And it's been a while since I thumbed through this book, so I don't know about the studies to compare traditional grading versus this approach. So no, not the studies. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I gotcha.
Okay, it's not the information that made up the specs grading book. I have a research component in the class. I do a primary and a secondary based research assignment in the class, and I'm trying to get the bundle grading thing around for that research assignment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. So, and this is the one drawback to bundling, because I think what you're kind of pointing to here, Renee, is, and to go back to the beginning of my presentation, I spent at least 2 or 3 hours for about 6 to 7 days during my winter break revising my my curriculum and my pedagogy. And so if you have a research project that you want to do, you need to kind of go through and go, okay, what is this assignment going to look like for an 80% standard, and what components will indicate if this is complete or incomplete? So that's going to be the page length, the references required for the research, any kind of prompt that you have, is it responded to sufficiently? And so instead of a rubric, you give the student a checklist that you also use in your grading. Is how I've been doing it for my courses. I don't have them do outside research projects in my survey courses, but if I were to, the specification list that I shared earlier, that's how I would approach it. I teach science, and I'm going to use the money part, the EDC, yeah, the ECDMs. Yeah, that is real. That provides a lot of leverage. So, I mean, if you weren't to use any of the specification or bundlings and just use the tokens, I think you would see a huge increase in student success. And on that, one thing I would like to share is typically my grades at the end of the semester follow the standard bell curve. This semester, it didn't follow a bell curve at all. 92% of my students earned a B or higher in my courses, particularly the face-to-face courses. Not so much with the internet courses, although that was pretty high as far as B's and A's are concerned as well. But the internet course is a little bit more challenging because communication is critical in an internet course, and it's sometimes hard to convey this novel approach to students. Okay, I got some more questions. I would like to learn more about how to design. Yeah, yeah, me too, Pooja. So I've set it up, and it's. Let me bring this up real quick. This is how it looks in a course, right? So bundle 1, bundle 2, bundle 3, bundle 4. Student opens up bundle 1. This is the first thing that they're going to click, right? This is what I showed you before. Okay, that's what it takes to earn a C. I want to earn a C. That's what I'll do, right? And so they complete the assignment B1.1, and then they complete that, and now they've got a C in the course, right? And then they've got other assignments that they can do right here to earn a B or an A, right? And they do that throughout the semester, and then they complete the course. In the grade book, this is what it looks like, and this is where it gets, this is where some of the labor comes into play. And so these are total calculations that I had to create for each of the bundles. So bundle 1 for a C, open up that real quick. And so for each of the assignments, I designate them a specific grade category. So I'm sure you guys are familiar with that when you go to edit an assignment as a grade category. Now the grade category I choose is arbitrary. For bundle 1, I clicked assignment for each of the assignments in bundle 1, but that puts them in a bundle. And for a C, they're going to complete all of these assignments right here. And they're not going to complete these assignments that are part of that bundle that are designated as assignment in the grade category. And what they will see in their grade book, if they completed bundle 1 for a C, is a complete or incomplete, right? The default is it's not complete, right? And so if they complete those assignments for a C, this will turn green and it will be a complete. And so this is where it's not impossible to do this. It's not particularly difficult to do this. It's going to take some time on your first go around to set this up. Okay, let me close this out to see if there's any other questions here. So, I'm going to put this in the chat right here. I found this to be a helpful discussion on YouTube of faculty members that have implemented bundling for a number of years, some people that know a little bit more about this system based on their experience, and it had faculty that were at this chat that were asking questions. And so I found this very helpful as something as an addition to this initial conversation for any of you that might be interested in this. And I don't have that. And I can bring up, let me bring up Carrie Frost's approach. Shoot, should I have this ready? But I didn't. Drive. Where's my drive at? Just to show you how she kind of organizes it, so you can see how it's not a one size fits all for everybody. Okay, maybe that's it. No, that's not it. Okay, I'll have to dig that up later. I can send it in the chat once I find it, so I'm not wasting everybody's time looking for it. So you'll see it in your what are these things? Your Teams app later on. But yeah, any questions anybody has or comments? And you can reach, if questions do come up later, or if you get started on this and want to reach out to me just for some feedback, I would be happy to do it. Personally, my goal for this is to perhaps have a cohort of faculty that are interested in developing specification bundlings for their curriculum and pedagogy. And we can learn from each other and come up with best practices. I could see this being for anybody doing this, it might take a few semesters to really kind of fine tune it and make it specific for your academic discipline and your approach to teaching. And so I think it would be very helpful for us as an institution to have a number of us working on this and learning from each other of how to fine tune this as we go forward. But other than that, that's all I have for this. Wait, there was a comment earlier about
Yes,
grade
Sean,
inflation.
yes, there's a question from Richard. There was a comment earlier about grade inflation. Do
Yeah.
you see this as a potential problem with bundling?
I think it eliminates grade inflation because at least from my experience, it's been very difficult to go, okay, what does it really take to earn an A in this course? Now I can isolate, right? Okay, if you want to earn a C, yeah, you just do a few assignments, you work on them. It's not given. You're going to have to do some effort, but it's accessible. And then you can create a different level of effort for B assignments, make it accessible. But the way I'm approaching it is, oh, you want to earn an A. Okay, excellent. You're going to have to actually do some work in this course to earn an A, right? Because A is an abstraction that means excellent or outstanding. So I can isolate for those students that are striving for an A, what it actually means to earn an A in this course, right? And so just to go back to this document right here, this I think mitigates grade inflation greatly, right? Because I can really isolate, these students are coming to class on a regular basis. They completed the final paper. They got an outstanding complete on all 4 bundle summaries, and they earned a complete for all A's for all assignments that were for an A for each bundle. And then the standard, you can make your standard whatever you want. I've made my standard at 80%, right? And so even for a C student, the assignments that they are doing, they have to earn a 80% on those assignments. So yeah, really good question. And I think this approach allows us to systematically mitigate grade inflation to the extent possible. Yeah, good way of putting it. For me, this was very liberating. Students were empowered, everything was transparent. And again, it takes a couple of weeks for face-to-face students to really grok what we're talking about here. But once they do, then it's pretty seamless once you understand. Once you kind of bounce out of traditional grading into bundling grading for students of, oh, this is what it takes to earn these 3 letter grades at the end of the semester.
Thank you so much, Sean. I know I want to just put it out there again. Well, what I'll do is I'll make a couple of announcements just to follow up on building on what Sean was sharing about his future hopes regarding other faculty that might be interested in adopting this model, at least trying it out for a semester. And in the meantime, I'll share these details, and then if there's any other questions that come up, there'll be another opportunity for Sean to answer them. So I'm going to take the opportunity to share my screen now. Okay, and is everyone able to see the screen? Okay.
Yes.
So as a follow-up, and again, this was a wonderful introduction by Sean. We really appreciate you sharing your experiences and the model that you've developed for your own classes. And this is obviously not something that you can do overnight and requires a little bit more information and just to wrap your head around how that works. And so the Teaching and Learning Center is partnering with Sean. And the next step, if you decide that you're interested, this is by no means obviously mandatory, but if this has piqued your interest and you want to learn more to see is this really something that I would like to pursue for my own courses, on Tuesday, July 15th at the same time, we'll have an online discussion based on the book that Sean mentioned earlier, Specifications Grading by Dr. Linda Nielsen. And so if you would like to be part of that book study, the Teaching and Learning Center does have some books available. And Sabrina has dropped the workshop link in the chat. And so if you would like to read the book and have further discussions about it, and you're available at that time, you can register for that workshop. And then the idea would be that everyone will send out the book right away, because this is just about 3 weeks away. And then we would meet again to discuss the book and ask questions that you may have, different things. And so if you're interested, we do encourage you to register for that workshop, and then we'll follow up with you later regarding how we can send you the book, or if you'd like to come by and pick it up. And then after that, this is kind of just big picture. If after reading the book and having a discussion with the faculty, you decide, yes, I still am interested and I'm really serious about this, and I want to roll up my sleeves and see how I can redesign my course to accommodate specifications grading. Based on the interest, if we have enough interest, then the Teaching and Learning Center would organize a teaching circle where faculty could meet periodically. And our hope is also to bring on some guest speakers. Sean mentioned Carrie Frost, who he's connected with, and she's in the liberal arts. And then the Teaching and Learning Center was able to connect with another faculty member who's in the STEM. And our hope is that we could bring them on for an online discussion where you could have a Q&A depending on what discipline is most aligned to the courses that you teach. Because as he mentioned, your discipline would definitely make a difference as to how you organize your course. And so we don't have the details on that finalized, but it would just be an opportunity for faculty that are developing their course and with the goal of maybe launching their specifications graded design course for spring 2025. And they would work on it all throughout the fall semester. So if you have any other questions, and then you may just be curious about what is let's see if I can forward my slide here. This is just the table of contents for the book. It's not a very long book. It's only 130 pages, so it wouldn't take you very long to read, but this is the table of contents so that you have an idea of the topics that would be included in the book. So I don't know if you all have any questions for us regarding future PD opportunities related to this topic, but
Hey, while we're waiting for questions, let me bring my camera to that stack of money again. Wait, hold on. See that? So just a funny story that I wanted to share. I had the stack of money, and then I had people from Educational Technologies come in here to install something in my office. And I wasn't in my office at the time, but Lola, the department secretary, said that when they walked in, they saw all that money and they backed out and they said, I'm not going to that classroom. There's a whole bunch of cash on there. I thought that was quite funny. So she had to explain, no, it's not real money. It's this thing that he does in his classroom. And the other thing too that I'd like to mention is, I shouldn't be surprised by this, but every once in a while I would give students money by mistake. I would maybe give them extra money. I didn't realize I gave them the $5 for coming to class on time. And always students were honest. Oh, you already gave me the money, right? Or if I have a thing in there too, where if you leave class at any time, you got to give me the money back. And always students gave me the money back if they had to leave class for any reason. That's a way of, it's leverage to keep them in class. So they're not just arbitrarily and capriciously leaving class. So I found that kind of interesting. That students were quite honest and sincere about this economy that was created.
We have a hand up from Roz.
Yeah.
I had posted another question, Sean. I was just
Sure.
wondering, had you thought about developing the bundles around the actual grades? And the thing that made me think about that is where Krista mentioned stackable, right? So by that, I mean, one bundle is a C bundle. It's these activities. And if I get a B, I do those C activities plus a few more. And if I get an A, I do the B activities plus a few more. I
Yeah,
don't know if you've thought about that.
no, but other faculty do that, right? And so I've seen an approach in that book where they have got like 6 bundles. And so if you want to C in the course, you do bundles 1 through 3. If you want a B, you need to do bundles 1 through 3 plus 4 and 5. And then if you want an A, you have to do all 6 bundles. So I could see that working for different academic disciplines, absolutely. And I
Okay,
think
thank
Carrie Frost does that somewhat. I'll share that document once I'm able to dig it up, of how she organizes it in one page that she gives to her students, of how to know what it takes to earn a CB or an A in her course.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Mhm. Yeah, that's what's great about this, is it's there's all sorts of ways to fine tune it to your academic discipline and to your teaching style. It's definitely not a prescribed approach that is doctrinaire. I will share, so I dig that up. Yeah, let me know if anyone has any questions while you guys are if there are any questions. I'm going to try to see if I can dig up that Word document.
And we can always, if you're not able to find it right away, Sean, we can always share it through email with the participants.
Yeah, well, it'll come through on people's app if I share the link, which I should be able to find right now. Few more. There we go. It's going to come up. Is that it? No.
Does anyone else have a question?
I have a question.
Sure.
So with your tokens, what have you seen the students use the money for? Like to redeem?
Yeah, so I'll bring this up again. This is what they can redeem in my class, right? And again, you can fine tune this to however you think you can leverage, but I allow them, so I assign 4 bundle summaries, right? And so I allow them, if they want to be exempt from 2 of them, they pay me 250 EDCMs. And if they want to be exempt from a second one, they pay me 500. If they want to be exempt from the final exam, they could pay me 750. And then again, attendance, they can use their money that they earn to have excused absences. And I limit it to 5 per semester, which for the summer, I'm going to have to bring that to 3. Because time is of the essence during a summer class. Yeah, attendance is definitely motivating for students, particularly because they earn tokens for showing up in class. And what I like about this too is it eliminates a lot of not unnecessary conversations, but of explaining why I wasn't in class. It's just pretty cut and dry. Hey, I wasn't able to come to class. Here's $50. Cool. Thanks for your $50.
Have you collected feedback from the students at the end of the semester?
I'm eager to read my evaluations. I haven't been able to do that, but just from students coming in, I had a lot of students coming into. One of the other things that I didn't really mention is I have them redeem their EDCMs in my office. And so I had a lot of traffic in my office this last semester. And once we got past the money exchange, then that was an opportunity to have lots of conversations about the content, the concepts for the course. And then, it would come up that they highly appreciated the bundling. They said, this is very easy to see what I'm earning in this course. So I got just a lot of just in conversation, good feedback. I didn't get anybody telling me that this is confusing, I don't like it. So if there were students that didn't like it, and obviously so they wouldn't tell me, but I did have a lot of students tell me that they really enjoyed this.
And that's a good way to get them to the office to have those conversations.
Yeah, I was rubbing in the nose of my colleague. It's like, you don't have any students coming to your office. So I won this semester if we were but I was the only one having a contest in my own little head. But yeah, I had lines of students coming to my office to get their money or to give me their money.
That's a great problem to have.
Yes. Because that's a huge challenge. Students, because one thing because I would always have students prior to this going, hey, sir, I don't want to bother you. It's like, you're not bothering me. I'm getting paid to be here. So come in. But they would just, they had a mission. They wanted their money. So they would come in and.
Well, we'll wrap up the session for today. But if there is, I know Sean is looking for a resource and he can drop that in the chat. But if you all are interested at all in pursuing specifications grading, thank you so much, Sean, for sharing your time,
No
your
problem.
experiences. It sounds like it's a very promising model. And if you would like to explore it further, we invite you to join us for the book study. Feel free to register. The link is there in the chat, or reach out to us, email us, call us, and we'll be glad to register you, and so that we can take a little bit of a deeper dive into it. And then after that, there's another opportunity for a teaching circle if you decide you want to take the plunge and redesign your course. So thank you all for joining us this afternoon, and we're wishing you a great rest of the summer. And the Teaching and Learning Center will be here, and Sean was also very generous with his offer to reach out at any time to him if you have additional questions. So we appreciate your time, and we'll just stick around a few minutes here in case someone has a question, but otherwise, please feel free to move on to your next commitment for the day. So thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Really appreciate it. And at the last minute, I located Carrie Frost's document. So there's that.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, good. I'm glad we recorded it, Krista. I just got an email from a faculty member that said they had problems logging in. So once that recording's available, I'll send it to her.